Segozo Gwegu, and welcome to the Iorì wase front page podcast, brought to you by First Nations Fiber. I'm your host, Greg Horn. Today I'm joined by Dr. Emily Gibson McDonald, who is an associate professor of medicine at the McGill University Health Center. Today we discuss how to protect yourself from COVID-19 and what you should do if you should get infected by it.
First Nations Wireless is now First Nations Fiber. You've seen our team working through the community to get you connected. From the new development to the OCR, from the 207 to Clay Mountains, FN Fiber makes fiber optic internet easy for everyone. Coming to Ganhawaga soon. Visit radio.fnfiber.com to sign up today.
Welcome, Emily.
Hi, my name's Emily McDonald. I am an associate professor of medicine at the McGill University Health Center, and I'm a specialist in internal medicine.
Welcome to our podcast. One of the things that a lot of people are talking about and asking about right now is regarding the pandemic is the transmissibility of the Delta variant and how people can protect themselves.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've seen a lot of different variants of COVID evolve over the last 2 years. And the most recent variants are called Delta and Omicron. And we found that Delta was pretty infectious, so it was easy to catch it from other people. And then what we found was that Omicron was even more infectious, so that roughly every person who was getting infected was infecting 2 other people, which is a high degree of infectiousness. So the best way to protect yourself from getting Omicron or Delta, which are the 2 variants that are circulating and going around right now, is the same types of things that we've been doing really since the beginning of the pandemic. So, first and foremost, you want to get either your first, your second, or your third dose of vaccine. It's never too late. And we know that the third dose gives you extra protection against Omicron. So that's really important to get that third dose. And then you want to wear a really good fitting mask whenever you're in groups of people, especially when you're in indoors, because it's more infectious when you're in an indoor space. You want to wash your hands. And right now, what we're saying is you really need to limit your contacts. So the fewer people you're around, the less likely you're going to catch COVID.
I think what we're seeing too right now is there's a lot of breakthrough infections, right?
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of breakthrough infections. So, when you vaccinate somebody against a virus, it's actually normal that a lot of viruses require 3 doses of vaccine. So in a way, it's not that unexpected because a lot of people are getting several months out from their second dose. And so the immunity is starting to decrease. So your antibody levels are starting to go down a little bit, which is normal with time. And so what a third dose does is it reminds your body, and then your antibody levels get nice and boosted and they come back up high again. And we see that like lots of different viruses like hepatitis, when we get vaccinated against that, a lot of them require 3 doses of vaccine. So it's not that unusual that we would need a third dose to remind our bodies about COVID.
A lot of people are wondering, like if they get COVID, and I mean, for the last 2 years, people have been trying to prevent the spread and slow down the spread and all this and that, right? And for a lot of people, they think that if they get COVID, that it's the worst thing in the world. What should somebody do if they were to contract COVID?
Yeah, so it's a really good question because right now, what public health is asking us all to do is if we have symptoms, we're being told to stay home, right? And to try and stay away from other people. What you do need to do is you need to monitor yourself and how you're feeling. So there's different ways that we can monitor ourselves at home. So one way is to check your temperature, so to see if you have fever. So it's normal to have fever with COVID, but that should go away after a few days. You shouldn't keep having fever after like 7 to 10 to 14 days. That's, too long. So that would be something to signal that you might need to see a doctor. And then the next thing that you want to monitor is your breathing, because that's one of the more scary side effects of COVID is it can give you some problems with your breathing. And so what I usually say is if, for example, if you've got stairs where you live, if you're not able to climb up the stairs because you're too short of breath, that's a really good sign that you need to go to the hospital. If you're so short of breath that you can't speak in full sentences, or you're getting short of breath, like getting out of bed or putting on your clothes, that would be a sign that you need to go and see the doctor because that's too short of breath. It's normal though that you're going to have a sore throat, you're going to have a cough, you're going to feel achy, and all of those things can last several days.
If you get COVID or if you test positive on a rapid test, and as you know, we can't get PCR tests now, what are some of the best ways to treat it? Like, is there over-the-counter medication that people can take or any other home remedies?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to take the usual treatments that you would take if you had a cold. So if these are medications that you would normally take if you have a cold, you can take the same types of medications. So you can take Tylenol, you can take ibuprofen if you're, otherwise healthy and your kidneys are okay. Like Advil is something that you can take for the aches and the pains. Sometimes a hot shower can help if you're achy or if you feel like you've got a cough or you're having a little bit of trouble breathing. Like hot bath or hot shower can help. And then just making sure that you keep up with your fluids, that you're able to eat okay, make sure you're drinking water and electrolytes, keeping hydrated, all the usual things that you would do. If you're someone who has a problem with their immune system, there are medications that can be taken. And so if you get COVID and you're quite sick from something else, like maybe you've got cancer or you're getting chemotherapy, those people should see a doctor as soon as possible, because there are some treatments that we can give people who are really high risk to prevent them from complications like going to the hospital.
I guess we're seeing in the last few weeks is an increase in hospitalizations in the province of Quebec. If we go back to March 2020, one of the things that was the messages that was being put out there was we don't want to see a huge increase in hospitalizations and put a strain on the healthcare network. So how can people best do that? Are you guys seeing a lot of people just going to the hospital because they think they have COVID, but they're not really seriously ill or anything like that?
So that does happen sometimes, but I would say for the most part, members of the public are pretty aware now of the big stress that's on the hospital system. It's always good to remind people that, if you're having a cough and you're having fever and you feel tired, those are normal symptoms of COVID. People who should be coming to the hospital are people who are dehydrated, they can't eat anymore, they're too short of breath to move around in their apartment or their home. That should prompt you going to the hospital. And yes, the healthcare system is overwhelmed, but we are there to look after you. So if you're sick, if you can't eat, if you can't breathe, if something is wrong, you should come to the hospital, because even though we're overburdened, we will find a way to look after you. Are
we seeing a huge difference in how people who are vaccinated and who are unvaccinated with severity of COVID right now with the new variants?
Yeah, so we are seeing a difference in people who are vaccinated and unvaccinated. Even people who are having breakthrough infections, if they've had 2 doses of the vaccine, they're much less likely to go to the hospital. So while we're seeing breakthrough infections on the vaccine is doing its job. It's keeping you from getting sick and going to the hospital and ending up on a ventilator. The people that we're seeing in the intensive care unit, these are for the most part people who are unvaccinated or people whose immune system couldn't respond well to the vaccine. So getting a vaccine, 1, 2, 3 doses, that will definitely help, in a really meaningful way to keep you out of the hospital. Even if you do end up getting infected with COVID, it's very, very helpful to have the vaccine already.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to tell people about COVID or and about staying safe?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a couple of times already during this podcast, and I just said it, but it's never too late to get your vaccine dose. If you haven't had one already, the person in the vaccine center is going to be really, really happy to see you. No one's going to make you feel ashamed. They're going to be really happy to receive you and to give you whatever dose of vaccine you're coming in for. So don't hesitate. It's never too late. It truly is the best way to keep you and your family safe.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yago, everyone, for listening, and be sure to be on the lookout for our other podcasts, including Your News and Profiles with Abigail Jacobs and Movement is Medicine with Mark Lalone.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iorì and its employees.